The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning here at 5 a.m. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher. Begin with some breaking news from overnight. Fire crews knocked down a large structure fire that appeared to be in an abandoned house. It broke out around 10 o'clock last night on Texas Street in southeast Bakersfield. Video sent to 17 News shows a firefighter forcing his way through a side gate to get to the flames. It was put out in less than 2 hours. No word yet on what sparked this blaze.
17 News is your local election headquarters, and it was a packed house at last night's County Supervisors meeting as talks continued over redrawing district boundaries. At the last hearing, County Supervisors asked for certain proposals to go back to the drawing board before making a decision. Advocates that submitted proposals claimed drastic changes must be made, arguing some communities have lacked representation for decades. Last night, Supervisors heard from a number of residents both for and against those boundary changes.
I've seen how inequitable the current maps are, and with your, no offense, but with your history of known gerrymandering, I think that it would be in your best interest to accept the maps that have been graciously provided for you by the Kern Equitable Maps Coalition. They're in accordance with the Fair Maps Act.
I firmly request that you look at human beings based on being citizens, voting citizens, residents of Kern County, not on the color of their skin. I don't quite understand how the needs are that different. We all need good hospitals. We all need good roads. We all need good parks. We all need to be together. We don't need to be divided.
The proposed new district lines would leave 3 out of the 5 supervisorial districts with a Latino majority, as opposed to 2 of 5 under the current district borders.
5:04 is your time now, and this morning Bakersfield Congressman Kevin McCarthy is doubling down on his expectations for 2022, saying Democrats' policies will lead voters to flip the House. In Virginia, Republican Glenn Youngkin pulled off a major upset last week, winning a seat that former President Trump lost by 10 points. In an interview with our Washington correspondent, Kelly Mayer, the House Minority Leader pointed to the recent election as an early indicator of a big win for Republicans in 2022. But that's not all.
But the biggest indicator of it all is the policies. When people sit down to Thanksgiving this year, Americans will pay more for Thanksgiving than they ever have. When they go to the gas tank, they pay more for gasoline. Heating for the winter, they're going to pay more. That is a very bad look politically for them, but America has an opportunity to change the course.
McCarthy also pointed to parents' frustrations with vaccine mandates for students as a breaking point for voters.
There has been plenty of speculation of late about the political future of 3rd District Supervisor Mike Maggard. He has held that office for 14 years and is up for re-election 1 year from now. 17 News caught up to Maggard and asked him point blank, "Are you running or not?"
There's over a year remaining in my term, so I'm pondering that now. The most serious, complicated, life-changing event has occurred in the last 2 years, and that's COVID. And Supervisor Scrivener and I are the tip of the spear on dealing with that. So that's very, very time-consuming, and that's a very compelling responsibility to have. So I'm focused on that, and just not worrying about very much else besides that, because lives are at stake.
However, Maggard has a lot less than a year to make up his mind. The deadline for candidates to file for the June 2022 primary is March 11th. That's 122 days from now.
The city of Arvin is one step closer to getting a new city manager, a job that's been vacant since May. The city council last night interviewed 3 finalists for the job. They include Peter Cosenti of Huntington Beach, who has 28 years of experience in that position, Jeff Jones, the current interim city manager of Arvin and finance director, and Ricardo Noguera, the current economic development manager of the city of Cape Coral, Florida. No decision was made last night.
5:07 is our time now, and the Kern County Board of Supervisors is scheduled to vote today on an ordinance addressing homelessness. 17's Robert Price reports it's modeled somewhat after a so-called anti-camping ordinance adopted in Los Angeles County.
Cities and counties all over the country continue to wrestle with a persistent problem that only seems to get worse. What to do with people who, either by catastrophic circumstances, mental health, or choice, continue to live outside, oftentimes in public right-of-ways. That question has come to a head in Kern County, where the Board of Supervisors is considering whether to follow the lead of its counterparts in Los Angeles County with an ordinance tailored to fit local circumstances. The question: would it be more humane to force those so-called street campers to move, or more humane to let them stay until permanent housing can be arranged for them? In the mind of 3rd District Supervisor Mike Maggard, there's no question.
Homeless people that are rational and have decided that they don't want to live a homeless lifestyle have already moved into our shelters. Now we have a couple of groups left. One is those that absolutely do not want to conform to any social norms, and that's how they want to live, and others that aren't capable of making a decision. The people that are just happen to stop one night at the stoop of a door and that's where they slept that night, those people, many of those people have no idea how bad their circumstance is. So this is a tool to help them get back on their meds and get their life back stabilized, and when they are stabilized, move them into some transitional housing.
Not everyone agrees that's the best approach. This is Mariville Servin of the local organization Loud 4.
We all really just want the best for our community, but right now these individuals are struggling through a pandemic, are struggling through a system of poverty, and what we should be doing as a community is finding them housing and using those funds not to fund more code enforcers or police to harass these individuals, but instead use that money to build more affordable housing, build more transitional housing, and just build more shelters in general.
But to Maggard's way of thinking, it's far more humane and realistic to lift people out of homelessness through a process that takes things one step at a time toward permanent housing.
It isn't like some policeman's going to come up and roust them out or arrest them. It's a team of people that are comprised of counselors and mental health professionals to accompany them and engage there.
Everyone agrees that they have the best interests of Kern County's homeless population at heart. Not everyone agrees on the best way to address it. In Bakersfield, Robert Price, 17 News.
Also today, county supervisors are scheduled to hear an appeal regarding the development plans for a proposed cemetery in a Northwest Bakersfield neighborhood. A group of residents near the proposed site has been battling the decision for months. Just last week, residents spoke out against the site at a community meeting. The appeal hearing is set for 2 p.m.
The Biden administration is responding to a federal appeals court which blocked OSHA's new COVID vaccine mandate for large employers, warning that preventing the rule from going into effect could lead to hundreds of deaths a day. NBC's Chris Pallone has the latest from Washington.
Alex, good morning. The Justice Department argues an emergency order isn't necessary because the new federal COVID vaccine mandate doesn't take effect for more than a month. It's a dispute that ultimately could end up in the Supreme Court. The Justice Department says it will vigorously defend OSHA's new plan to require businesses with more than 100 employees to vaccinate everyone or subject those who refuse to mandatory tests and mask wearing.
The Department of Labor has a responsibility to keep workers safe and the legal authority to do so.
A federal appeals panel in Louisiana temporarily blocked the rule Saturday. It faces legal challenges in more than half the country. Ralph's Market, a grocery chain in the Southeast, is a plaintiff in one of the lawsuits.
This is not a lawsuit that is anti-vaccine. This is a lawsuit that is anti-mandate.
It comes as the U.S. government once again welcomes foreign travelers who are vaccinated from more than 33 countries, leading to emotional reunions at airports and border towns around the country after nearly 2 years apart.
There's no words to explain this. My kids have missed them. She's all I've got.
Airlines reporting mostly full flights to the U.S.
We've seen searches increase 340% for travel to the U.S., which is absolutely massive.
Go ahead and check your vaccination cards.
Meanwhile, the nation's second largest city, Los Angeles, is now enforcing some of the nation's toughest COVID rules, requiring proof of vaccination to enter restaurants, gyms, and salons. If allowed to take effect in January, the new federal COVID vaccine mandate would affect about 85 million American workers. In Washington, Chris Pallone, 17 News.
And here at home, the virus continues to maintain its presence here in Kern County. Yesterday, we learned another 986 people have been infected with COVID-19. No new deaths were reported. 227 people are in the hospital with more severe symptoms. 55 more are in the ICU.
And now to your 17 Homicide Tracker with an update on the discovery of a man's body in an Oildale park last month. The Kern County Sheriff's Office released details about the homicide investigation yesterday. It happened October 22nd at Riverview Park just after 10 p.m. KCSO says they received a report of a man down near the baseball field. When deputies arrived, they found the body of 44-year-old Stanley Evans, which had obvious signs of trauma. Details on how Evans died and who may have killed him have not been released. By our count, there have been 122 homicides in Kern County this year. Looking ahead to later this month, the annual Lights of Thanks event returns to honor our fallen war heroes. The United Veterans of Kern Memorial Day and Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day Association will hold the event at Union Cemetery from 3 to 6:30 p.m. November 24th, with the candle lighting beginning at 4 p.m. Officials say there's a big need for votive candles to mark the graves of our veterans. If you'd like to donate one, you can stop by the Union Cemetery office. And Bakersfield's annual Veterans Day Parade returns in person this Thursday after going virtual last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This year's theme is Veterans Are Valued Treasures. The parade will begin at 10 a.m. right outside of our studios at 21st and L Streets. 17's Jim Scott will be emceeing the event. A free pancake breakfast will be held for veterans ahead of the parade, and a free lunch will be provided following.
In sports news this morning, and Runners men's basketball kicks off their regular season later today, and they're taking on the highest ranked opponent they have ever faced. The Runners are headed to Los Angeles to take on UCLA. The Bruins, who made it to the Final Four last year before losing to Gonzaga, are ranked second in the nation heading into tonight's game. CSUB, meantime, is coming off a 5th place finish in the Big West last season. Tonight's game kicks off at 8 o'clock. 17's Taylor Schaub will have more on the matchup live from Los Angeles tonight on 17 News at 5. Super exciting, though.
That
this
should
is
be
a
fun.
big game.
Can't wait to hear.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.